Christmas coaching. Thomas adored the Christmas season. He was busier than ever, taking goods and passengers up and down his branch line. He loved seeing the smiling faces of the villagers. It even made the thought of wearing his snowplow more bearable. Annie and Clarabelle, on the other hand, had their quandaries with the holiday season. They liked helping the townsfolk, but they were older coaches and didn't fancy the hustle and bustle. Thomas tried to keep them in good spirits, but as the days ticked on, it became quite an ordeal. One morning, close to Christmas, Clarabelle felt cantankerous. "Another parcel, bag, or box, and I'll burst," she wailed. "Bother your boxes," huffed Annie. "My upholstery won't last to the new year if I have any more passengers." "Oh, come on, you two," chuckled Thomas. "Christmas Day is nearly here. We can't let the passengers down now." "It's all right for you," replied Clarabelle. "You've only your driver and fireman to carry. We're positively packed." All day, the grievances continued. Thomas tried everything. He stayed with the coaches between runs, kept them warm with his steam, and listened intently to their complaints. Alas, nothing satisfied Annie and Clarabelle, and their foul mood was rubbing off on everyone. Even the trucks grumbled about them. Thomas was glad when he was called away to shunt at the big station. When he arrived, he confided in Edward. "I just don't understand," he sighed. "They've always been a bit put out around Christmas, but this takes the cake. They're working very hard. I'd say it's made them lose sight of what Christmas truly means," replied Edward. "I think I know how to fix that." As dusk fell, Thomas brought his last train to the big station. Annie and Clarabelle were glad to be finished for the day, or so they thought. Thomas was uncoupled and moved away. Suddenly, Annie could see Edward and old slow coach backing down towards them. "I say, Edward, you must be at the wrong platform." "On the contrary," smiled old slow coach. "We're right where we need to be. The vicar is hosting a dinner at the church for those less fortunate," said Edward. "We have many volunteers and supplies to deliver, but can't do it ourselves." "That," finished Thomas, "is where you two come in." Annie and Clarabelle didn't know what to think. They were exhausted, but knew it wasn't proper to complain about helping with such a cause. Quiet and reluctant, they followed Edward out of the station. As the evening crept on, a light snow fell. Edward made several stops, picking up more volunteers and supplies at each station. It wasn't long before the train was packed, and Annie and Clarabelle began to grumble. "Day and night, packed tight." "There is a time and place," interrupted old slow coach, calmly but firmly, "to consider our own needs before others. This is not one of them." Annie and Clarabelle retired into stunned silence. When they arrived at the church, the coaches could hardly believe their eyes. Brilliant lights had been strung up, Christmas trees dotted the yard, and a large crowd had congregated outside. The volunteers spilled out of the compartments and eagerly unloaded supplies from Clarabelle. Soon, the smell of food wafted from the church kitchen. The crowd worked their way inside, eager for a hearty meal. Annie and Clarabelle soon heard the sounds of carols and laughter. "Lovely, isn't it?" smiled old slow coach. "Hard work to put it all together, but it's work that matters." At the end of the night, the vicar spoke to Edward. "A most remarkable turnout," he beamed, clasping his hands together. "Bless you, Edward. Your help made this all possible." "Well, thank you, your reverence," said Edward. But we couldn't have done it without Annie and Clarabelle. Their assistance was invaluable. It was the least we could do, said Clarabelle. And we'd do it again in a wheel turn. Wouldn't we, Annie? Indeed we would, Clarabelle. One thing you can and should do is get some rest, smiled Edward. Come on, let's get you back to the junction. Thomas was asleep in the carriage shed when Edward brought the coaches back. He stirred as they were shunted alongside. Well then, he yawned. How was your extra work? Simply marvelous, smiled Annie. Off to sleep with you now, Thomas, said Clarabelle. We can't let our passengers down before Christmas comes. Thomas chuckled, and the three friends fell contentedly to sleep.